This is Linux In-Laws, a podcast on topics around free and open source software, any associated contraband, communism, the revolution in general, and whatever else fancies your tickle. Please note that this and other episodes may contain strong language, offensive humor, and other, certainly not politically correct language. You have been warned. Our parents insisted on this disclaimer. Happy, Mum? Thus, the content is not suitable for consumption in the workplace, especially when played back on a speaker in an open plan office or similar environments. Any minors under the age of 35, or any pets, including fluffy little killer bunnies, your trusted guide dog, unless on speed, and cute T-Rexes or other associated dinosaurs. This is Linux In-Laws, Season 1, Episode 75. Welcome, Martin. How are things?
Yeah, things are fine. Yes, nice week in Barcelona.
What did you do in
Back
Barcelona?
to the rain. Well, there's various events going on this time of year normally, like Gartner and VMware World Explorer thingy, stuff like that.
Ah, okay. Excellent. So another junket with corporate funds well spent. Excellent. The way we like it.
Well, clearly spreading the word. it's
What word?
Many words, yeah.
Links may or may not be in the show notes.
And how are things in the Russian soon-to-be annex?
Vladimir, if you're listening, keep on going. Jackson is already a thing of the past, so keep going.
Indeed.
Next thing you know, actually, the Ukrainian Empire will infiltrate Russia if they haven't done this yet, I suppose.
Yeah.
Of course, we're recording this in May of 2022.
Yes.
And no, jokes aside, but this is not the war podcast, but something much more serious.
It is.
Namely, how to achieve world domination and stay on top of it.
I thought we had a cooking episode today. No?
Did we?
Yeah, something about how to prepare your ingredients and stuff.
Well, onion is a little bit of a giveaway, I suppose.
It is. Well, as you know, every meal starts with an onion, pretty much. If you listen, if you listen to good chefs, yeah.
People, you heard it here first. Breakfast cereal not without an onion.
It's another one of those. I haven't tried that one.
Pudding, same thing. And your ordinary strawberry tart, not without an onion, please.
Too sweet without onions. Yeah, no good at all. Indeed.
And don't forget the garlic while you're at it.
It always comes in handy here, in case there are any Transylvanians wandering around.
Vampires around, exactly. So if you're suffering from the inflood of vampires, never mind apple tarts, strawberry tarts, what have you, just add garlic. Normally does the trick quite well. No, but onion was indeed the hint there. So because tonight's topic is actually the Onion Router Network, also affectionately known as Tor. So Martin, what is Tor?
Yeah, it's quite amusing, isn't it? They added the "der" bit, otherwise it would be the "or," which is not quite the same.
So that would be the onion router. Sorry, as an onion router, as I read out the article. Okay.
Indeed. So what is Tor? It's a good question. Tor is many things, but are you referring to the technical part or the usability part?
It's first of all the origin. It goes back to something called the God of Thunder, if I'm completely mistaken, and then
that's with an H, though. Yeah,
exactly. And the cheapskates that they dropped the H.
I see. Is this the lesser episode?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it goes back to an overlay network called the Onion Router, hence the name. That was developed in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I picked up somewhere that it was first introduced by the Navy in the US. To secure their communications.
With heavy funding by various government agencies.
Hmm.
Wikipedia tells just the official version, I suppose, but I reckon at some stage the NSA had their fingers in that pie as well.
Hmm. So I have a question for you.
As you normally do.
Yeah, just one for now, anyway. So, if it was developed by various security agencies, why did they make it open source?
Taxpayers' money at the end of the day.
Well, yes, but that is not normally any reason to divulge any information or
Well, if
technology.
the Free Software Foundation and the Electronic Frontier Foundation and all the rest of them are anything to go by days, Martin.
Well, yes, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they pay not 100% attention to those groups. Anyway,
I'm dead sure that that organizations like the Free Software Foundation do pay attention to that.
no. I meant those government agencies probably are not paying too much attention to what they say. Well, they will listen to what they say, but they'll ignore it, right?
But I don't think you can take them to court, but it's not too far off.
Okay.
This may have not been in the show notes. I can recall some legislation saying that. And this is what the FSF and the FSFE has been campaigning for a long, long, long time. And the campaign is actually called Public Money, Public Code. So if you fund the code base with taxpayers' money, it better be open source, all right. As in the original meaning, in terms of a published code base. Not necessarily attached to a GNU public license or something like this.
No, that seems more than fair, indeed.
But going back to much more safer grounds, why is it important? And at the and before we even get to the political side, how does it work?
Okay. Well, how does it work? It has. It's actually run by volunteers. Like yourself, if I'm not mistaken.
Indeed. But before we get to that, we should probably explain on a technical level, on a very high-level technical level, basically, without going into the nitty-gritty details. Details, of course, will be in the show notes as in links to further information, how it actually works on a high level.
Okay.
So the idea is actually, as the subtitle implies, it's an anonymizing network. In terms of, say, you want to buy a fluffy toy without your spouse knowing that you're actually buying a fluffy toy for your girlfriend or something like this. So you visit a shop, and because your spouse knows via kind of taking a look at your browser...
This is a little bit far-fetched.
If you have a better example, Martin, just go ahead. Okay. If you're
what about if you're
drug trafficker?
What about if you're Edward Snowden?
Yes. If you're Edward Snowden and don't want to be surveilled?
Well, you don't want your conversations to be, or who you are speaking to, let's put it that way, or who you are visiting, you want to keep that private, then Tor is for you, right?
Well, if you don't want to have somebody eavesdropping on your communication, yes, like your ISP, for example.
Well, I mean, clearly you can encrypt your traffic as well, but it's more about being traceable, right? If your ISP will know where you are, your IP address, and where your destination is, and all that kind of stuff. So, therefore, they can make the connection. Who you are talking to or who you are visiting, whatever, right? So that's the idea about, if I'm not mistaken, around Tor, is that
but I mean, okay,
these things are no longer available.
A much more serious example, say if you want to run a distributed denial of service attack on a US government website. Okay.
Why would you want to do that?
Just for the practical. Say Trump would be in power once again.
It's a pretty hypothetical example.
Exactly.
Glad to hear it.
And if you want to take some website down, you essentially run a distributed denial of service attack. But needless to say, or let's take to the simple use case, you actually don't run a distributed denial of service attack. You just run a denial of service attack from a single IP address. Needless to say, you don't want to have the wire sussing out where that traffic comes from. So essentially, what you would do, you would use the Tor network.
Okay, well, before you
traffic towards the domain.
Before you carry on that one, if you don't want people to know your original IP, then why not use a VPN? service.
True, because there was the traffic pattern that is similar to a DOS attack coming from your IP address. On a much more serious note, say if you're living in China, you don't have VPN access. And if you want to get around the Great Wall of China, also known as that firewalls,
not the thing made out of bricks, right? For those listeners who
exactly
who are more familiar with the brick version.
in terms of if you want to escape the censorship, Tor is pretty much your only way out. In terms of getting around that firewall, in terms of visiting websites that you otherwise couldn't visit, or say if you want to send a mail to a journalist in a Western country, because you want to alert them to the fact that there's something wrong with the government.
Mm-hmm. Without the government knowing, right? Yeah.
Exactly. In that case, Tor is pretty much your only option, because you cannot use a VPN apparently, and you cannot send a direct mail to a journalist. So you send it to a mail server, but before you even go there,
what if you send an encrypted mail?
Network. Well, you could do that too.
Okay.
But then the government would still know what mail server you're addressing.
Yeah, but that's fine. Anyway, there's multiple uses. Yeah.
Indeed. So what actually happens on a TCP layer, and that's layer 4 for you, you target a so-called entry node. That entry node picks up the clear text traffic and puts it into at least 3 layers of encryption.
Okay. Stop there for a second. So when you say target an entry node, what does that mean?
Tor is essentially an anonymizing over the network. So what you have is a network of nodes, so-called routers, that can be subdivided into 3 categories. Entry nodes, where the traffic enters the network, that overlay network. Relay nodes that simply pick up traffic from neighboring nodes, and so-called exit nodes that carry the payload to the target address. So if you want to say, for example, going back to my original example, if you want to buy fluffy pets or fluffy toys from a store, you actually enter, say, fluffytoystore.com in your browser address. So then instead of going directly to the web server of that website, what the software actually does, it routes that traffic through the Tor network. Meaning the target domain. Just let me finish here before.
You're missing various bits.
But I'm getting there in a minute, Martin. You can fill in the blanks anyway. So that once that payload now left the network, or the target web server, where the traffic is essentially destined to, sees is actually the address of the exit node. So that web server then prepares the website and shoves it back to the exit node. And the exit node basically, of course, keeps tabs on where the traffic basically would be routed back then, through a similar mechanism like the way into the network, essentially.
Yeah, and the point being that the exit node only knows the previous node, right? Not
exactly
the original origin. Yeah.
Now, Martin is going to give a much more detailed technical overview after I've given the high-level outline of how this network works, and why it's also actually called the onion router, because there's a meaning to that term.
Yeah. So when you mentioned earlier targeting destinations, etc., and the software, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a specific browser, or are we talking about another piece of software that targets the Tor network? What are the ways to access route your traffic through the Tor network? Let's put it that way.
Anything that can talk TCP, essentially.
Yeah, but for your ordinary user who wants to buy a fluffy toy, right? What do they need?
Exactly. I mean, they can use something called a Tor browser bundle, also known as TBB, which essentially is an extended service release of something called Firefox that has Tor functionality built into the whole browser thing. But needless to say, any software that is able to speak TCP can use something called the SOX proxy, which essentially is a layer 4 shim that picks up the traffic and routes it forward to the onion router network, as in the overlay network. Essentially, just acting, and hence the name, as a proxy, as in something that picks up the traffic and reroutes it before that traffic reaches its final destination.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. So, what happened? So, what about these different nodes, right? What is the purpose of them?
The purpose is actually to disguise the route the traffic took. So,
well, I mean, you talked about relays and exit nodes and entry nodes.
Yes.
And how many of these nodes are there?
Quite a few, about 7,000 relays.
Okay.
In 2021.
And how many relays are typically used?
I own about 3,500 of these relays.
No. When you make a request, right?
I'm joking. I have 2 relays running. No, essentially what happens, the entry node wraps the traffic into 3 layers of encryption, meaning you have at least 2 nodes in between, plus the exit node that basically unwraps the final layer, if not more. The algorithm is quite complicated. I won't go into the details. Needless to say, there's the source code available, and the Tor project website has quite an elaborate set of documentation outlining the final mathematical and technical details. But suffice it to say, there are at least 3 routers between you, as in the entry node, and the final target.
So a minimum of five in total.
Yeah, which makes it mathematically proven pretty much impossible unless you're using heuristic approaches to detect the route through the network. And that's exactly what counts.
Okay. Right. So what about your ISPs? What do they think about running relays?
Well, they only see traffic targeting entry node, so no big deal. Given the fact that normally you would use a TLS encrypted connection anyway, plus the nodes within the network use TLS encryption themselves, you're talking about a 2-layer encryption approach.
Yeah, but surely these entry nodes are all known to various organizations.
And this is actually a tiny vector of attack. Details will be in the show notes. What you have to do if you want to take a look at a map of the onion router network, as in the Tor network, you actually have to compromise a significant amount of exit and entry nodes. Plus, then you would have to use some sort of really advanced fingerprinting to correlate an entry with an exit node, never mind where the traffic is coming from. From a mathematical perspective, you have to capture the majority of the nodes, and as I said, details for links of that paper will be in the show notes. You have to capture the majority of a Tor network if you want to compromise the architecture as such. Even if you control a certain set of entry and exit nodes, that doesn't compromise the overall architecture, which is good news. And as a matter of fact, the Tor project itself has about a budget of $2 million per annum, is actively funding offensive security in that field, i.e. they want to know if you can break the software so that they can remedy that fact. And as a matter of fact, and the Tor website does contain an awful lot of documentation on this, once some security researcher managed to reveal a flaw in the overall architecture, never mind the implementation, it was fixed pretty quickly.
Okay. So why do you run a relay node? Why would anybody run a relay node? Or an exit node even?
Well, because the more nodes there are, the better the throughput. Because the whole network the whole network rides on the availability of network of bandwidth. And if the more shoulders you have where you can put the bandwidth on, the faster the network gets.
Well, but with 5 hops, you're obviously gonna be somewhat slower than a direct connection, right? For sure.
That depends on various parameters, I suppose, like your ISP speed, the speed that the exit nodes are capable of, and all the rest of it.
Well, just pure network latency between nodes is going to add up.
True, that depends on the hops between the relays. Yes.
Is there any kind of logic there that it uses local nodes or not local nodes, or is there no logic at all?
Do not know. I'm not really that familiar with the current implementation actually, because the implementation has changed over the last 20 years quite a lot.
Okay, so now we know what it is.
Now, Martin, why would the whole thing be important? Why would people use Tor in the first place?
But there's two reasons, right? One is to keep your one is to keep your own anonymity, what you are browsing and doing on the web private. That's one. The second one is clearly what is known for the the criminal element, right?
I mean, I'm almost tempted to say you can
drugs tracking and weapons tracking, and the Silk Road is the biggest example here, right? So.
We should probably now talk about onion sites. Now, what is an onion site? Or the dark net, as various journalists call it.
It's something that ends in .onion.
Fair enough. And why is it called the darknet, Martin?
Well, because it's not the clear net.
Exactly, you need light for that, right?
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
I mean, the reason why it's called darknet is quite straightforward, because search engines can't index the whole thing, hence the name darknet. And
I don't know, no search indexes on the darknet.
Well,
I thought there was one.
These are manually compiled catalogs.
Okay.
So
say you're buying your fluffy bunny thing on on some dark side, right? How would you know where to find your fluffy bunny if there's no Google, right? Everybody knows.
Well, that's exactly
Yahoo
the point.
And search engines.
There are manually compiled catalogs of dark websites, and these dark websites also, of course, being being also part of the darknet, do have various links to other onion sites. That's the way it works. Needless to say, because you cannot automate this, quite a few of these catalogs are outdated, not maintained, all the rest of it. So it's a hit or miss. But the thing is, I reckon if you want to really sell illegally fluffy toys, you know your ways around this. But before we kind of get to that, how does the onion site work from a technical perspective, Martin?
How does it work? I mean, it's just their website, right? So
yeah, but
it's like any other.
Yes, but
it needs some kind of web server and backend, and then some payment method as well, right? So and then
how does
at some point you may receive your fluffy bunny or not, and then what do you do?
How does the network know how to get to an onion site?
How does it know? Well, presumably there are some darknet DNS servers. No.
No, Martin. That's the whole point.
Okay. So how does the name resolution work then for a .onion site?
Well, if you take a close look at how the onion site so-called URL is constructed, you'll see actually that this is a random combination of letters and numbers.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you open...
Well, is it random?
That depends on the hash algorithm. So, Martin, what do you see in the morning when you open up your Tor browser and check out your favorite news site called, what's it called? Reptilioids.onion.
I have no idea. I thought it was some kind of weird combination of letters and numbers rather than an actual
the way it works
readable
essentially,
format.
Yeah. If you want to publish an onion site, essentially what you have to do is you have to generate a hash that is then being picked up by the network. And through a mutual authentication involving that hash, a software that is able to deal with .onion sites eventually gets to the content. So essentially, the way it works, basically, you set up a piece of software on your machine where you want to host the onion site. You generate that hash, you make the hash known to the network, and then the network
What
takes care
software are
of
we talking
routing.
about here? Sorry, does it
Say
have a
again?
name? Does this software have a name? Or?
Well, it's called the Tor network, no?
I don't know.
There's also a Tor daemon.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so you run a Tor daemon on your web server. Okay, yeah.
I mean,
It
all
generates
you
the
have
hash.
to do is
okay.
all you have to do is essentially you have to make sure that the network, as in near Tor daemon, knows how to reach your site. So normally, what you would do, you would actually run a Tor daemon on your onion site, because in that case, the access to the website would only be a local file system access.
Yeah. So okay, but it's still missing. The bits missing is how does the client know where your reptilioids.onion site, what IP address
You see,
is?
that's exactly the beauty.
Okay.
You basically publish this onion site to a catalog.
So there is a catalog.
You can also put that actually on a postcard and send to your friend. Or you can take out an ad in the newspaper. The thing is, basically,
newspaper. What is that?
Newspaper is something that old people like yourself and me used to read before the advent of the so-called internet. But the beauty is basically you don't know, and all of the other people do not know how to get to the onion site without using the network. In contrast to your ordinary internet, where you can actually trace the flow of traffic to and from the web server, that's exactly not possible using Tor.
What DNS is for, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So using the hash, using .onion, the network knows exactly how to get to that onion site. But you cannot trace this because, as you said, there is no DNS service on the Tor network. So all you know is a hash. And then you have this anonymizing relay network on top. So you cannot possibly establish where the server is that serves that onion site. And that's precisely the point.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of effort to buy a fluffy toy. Anyway, yeah, okay.
Well, that's the reason why people use it now for much more serious endeavors, I suppose. Like circumventing censorship and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Maybe now we should talk even more about attacks to ensure that there is no further misconception, because for the last 15, 20 years, there has been an awful lot of bad press about Tor, which is simply not true. For example, that that network is breakable, which is not the case. There have been some theoretical scenarios where actually a couple of security researchers laid out a theoretical framework for attacking the network. So it boils down to two vectors. EA, you want to map out the Tor network, which is, by the way, highly dynamic in structure, because Tor, as other networks as well, the internet comes to mind, is dealing with the fact that nodes can fail, can vanish.
You mean your dodgy hardware? Yeah, okay.
Can go down and up again, and the network has to cope with this. So in that case, or in that regard, Tor is not really any different from TCP, because TCP, UDP, and also IP, as an underlying protocol layer, was exactly designed for that purpose. So, I mean, you see this in the olden days where people actually sat down and specified the network. The routing algorithms that basically route traffic from A to B in the internet can cope with node failures, router failures, and all the rest of it. And that's precisely the same thing in the Tor network. As a matter of fact, Tor was designed in a way, because it's built upon TCP and IP, was designed in a way that node failures are quite common. So if a relay goes down that handles traffic in the network will detect this and then find another route. That's precisely the point. And over the years, quite a few security researchers have tried to crack the network. And first of all, the first vector is actually you want to find out the map or the internal structure of Tor, which is tricky in itself because it's highly dynamic and it changes all the time based on the routes between the relays and the exit nodes and the entry nodes. And first, and then basically the crown jewel, so to speak, they want to know how to get from, say, a target node to the origin node. In terms of they want to track back if a packet hits a destination node where it originally comes from, i.e., who is behind the entry node. Because if you can establish that, the whole overlay network is defunct in terms of it's obsolete.
Yeah.
And that has not been proven possible up to now. Only in isolated use cases where you, as I said, where you control the majority of a theoretical Tor network, where you control a certain amount of exit and entry nodes, apart from the relays, a certain portion of the network may be visible if you're lucky. But for the rest, you are left at guessing who's on the other side in terms of browser fingerprints and all the rest of it. And even then it becomes hard. So any nonsense in terms of we have broken Tor and Tor is not secure, forget about it. It's just hype.
Well, I mean, how do you know out of the, 7,500 nodes or something, who controls them? I mean, you run two, someone may be running 5,000 of them, right? Like the Chinese or something. How do you know if they don't?
The Tor project actually keeps tabs on the relays.
Okay.
So
okay.
if they find out a bad relay that is doing malicious things, they will put that on a blacklist, and the network will know immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily malicious things, but it's more of a monitoring type scenario, right?
I mean, if a relay has a backdoor that exposes information, and if the project will find out about this, they will blacklist the router, and the router is gone, and that particular node is gone.
Okay.
Same goes for exit, same goes for entry nodes. So children, don't listen to the hype. Don't listen to the voices. I'm tempted to say.
Okay, what else should we know about Tor?
Well, actually, we'll leave something out. We should probably talk about the political impact.
Okay.
As in, I reckon that China would be even a closer shop without Tor being present.
Yeah.
In terms of that the Chinese government tries to keep tabs on things, but unfortunately there are still quite a few number of, I'm almost tempted to say, underground journalists and all the rest of them that manage to get the word out in terms of what's currently wrong, whether you're talking about the suppression of minorities, whether you're talking about human right violations, all the rest of it. And China is just one example. If you take a look at the recent uptake of Tor usage in a country called Russia, exactly, especially since the 24th of February 2022, that is a proof of that point in itself, in terms of the longer the war went on, the more censored the media became. And if you take a look at the coverage of the war since March, April, May timeframe, and we're recording this in November of 2022, things have changed a tiny bit in the last 4 weeks, I suppose. I'm tempted to say, but before that, it was kind of really streamlining public coverage in the USSR. So if you want to get to know the truth in terms of what's really happening in the Ukraine, you have to rely on outside sources. And if you are not using a VPN, your only means for that is actually using Tor. Given the fact that the Russian government has been increasingly blocking VPN traffic, eventually Tor became your only tool of choice at the end of the day, more or less.
Yeah, that's a good enough reason. How do we know about this uptake of the use of Tor in Russia?
The project keeps stats on the traffic, and links may or may not be in the show notes.
Okay. Good.
Now it's probably time to talk about Tor usage in the Wissa household, especially from the offspring perspective. Now, Martin, how many websites do you censor?
Don't know, quite
a few, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't counted them. Yeah.
And just wondering, have you checked Wireshark or something else? What the kids take a look at these days in terms of where they kind of go for their content without daddy knowing it?
Well, they clearly are not that advanced. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So they're not using your Wi-Fi.
Yes, anyway. Yeah.
They go directly to their mobile providers and don't bother with daddy's Wi-Fi at all, right? Because they know
that traffic's monitored as well. So yeah.
Any entry nodes are blacklisted anyhow.
Indeed. Yes.
Of course, there are also ways around this. What you can actually do is you can access an entry node through a VPN, and you can also establish an exit node through a VPN, especially if you control.
Well, we can also block these VPN sites anyway. It's not a problem.
Well, I mean, you see, the thing is basically if you put a VPN in front of an entry node, which you control, by the way, and that can be as small as a Raspberry Pi sitting in a closet, and it simply has 2 static IPs. Especially if you don't know where that closet is located, that's going to be a hard thing to track, even if the ISP knows the rough location of that closet. And if you do this multiple times with servers you control, that's close to perfection. Because if you want to suss this out, if you don't have ISP access, and especially if you're using multiple ISPs, good luck with that. So, the Viz offspring, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a way. Don't spend a lot of moolah on your mobile traffic. Just spend it on a few small root servers. Put a VPN on that you control, and you can still use daddy's Wi-Fi. No worries.
You think I won't notice?
You heard it here first. Exactly.
Things can be monitored. Yeah.
Not if they set up a VPN between their device and their VPN gateway of choice that they control. Good luck with monitoring in that case.
No, but the fact that they're establishing one can find out about, no problem. But we digress anyway.
This offspring just used rotating dynamic IP addresses. If you want to know the details, Daddy has my email address. In case you listen to this podcast. Anyway.
Yes. Okay.
And in contrast to Daddy, I'm cheap.
Well, that's debatable, but yeah.
Indeed. But we digress, as Martin observed.
Indeed,
yes.
Yeah.
So now is it time? Is it time for the boxes already? I wonder.
Well, you still haven't told us why you're running relays.
Because I want to help the cause.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's fair enough.
That's that. Martin, the question, of course, begs: why don't you run a relay?
Well, I mean, there is obviously a whole debate around fine. There's a let's say a positive side to Tor and a negative side, right? So, yeah, I mean, clearly it is also used for some various amounts of illegal activities.
Yep. But so are roads, and if you want to put a tap on that, stop paying taxes, and good luck with that.
Well, this is yeah. I mean, if you extend that argument and find some people don't like to comply to society and laws and things like that. On the subject of law, is it illegal to use Tor?
Well, you see, that depends on your jurisdiction and on your level of technical expertise. If you're living in a jurisdiction that bans Tor.
Like China. Yeah.
People forget anything. So in that case, disregard Martin's comment or remark. Check out the legal situation, the one you just made about dual use. and check out the legal details in your jurisdiction. And if you feel comfortable with running a Tor relay, it doesn't have to be an exit node, it doesn't have to be an entry node, very important. I only run relays myself, so I don't run exit nodes, very important.
How come?
Because I just want to help with the bandwidth.
Well, yeah, but what's the difference between running a relay and an exit node?
Because an exit node is quite frequently targeted with browser attacks.
Okay.
And I don't want to bother with that. I just want to help with the bandwidth. And the key word here being bandwidth, because I could run exit nodes, fair enough, but then I would have to put an awful lot of effort into hardening them. And that's exactly the bandwidth that I don't have.
Okay, fair enough. So running a relay node is fairly beneficial to the network and has no downsides.
Right? Yes. Yeah. And the more relays you run, the better.
Okay. Links in the show notes?
Links are actually, the link to the project site will be in the show notes, and the project site, as in topproject.org, I think, does contain instructions of how to set up a relay very easily. And if you really want to go the whole hog, set up a bridge. A bridge is essentially an unpublished entry node. They change quite frequently, hence the nature, and I think it's a simple plugin that you simply install as part of your browser. Details may be in the show notes. But each and every time, especially from a dynamic IP address, you start a browser, you're helping somebody to enter the network. And if you close that browser, that bridge is gone. Hence the very dynamic nature of a bridge.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about browser fingerprints and stuff. Should we mention this to the listeners as well?
Some of it is voodoo, some of it is esoteric.
Is that a technical explanation?
So don't bother, I suppose. No, I mean the high and low of it is essentially is as there's a black art around how to fingerprint a browser.
Okay.
It can be done, but if it's worth the effort, I mean, fair enough. If you're shipping your daily 5 tons of coke, some legal authorities may be after you. Needless to say, full disclosure, I wouldn't advise running anything legal outside or inside of Tor. So if you're running an onion site that is offering pedophilia or something like this, A, shame on you, and B, you shouldn't be part of that Tor network in the first place. Because you're taking away bandwidth from the just causes. Like
but Tor doesn't discriminate between these things.
No, it doesn't, and there's a reason for that. Exactly. But the fewer nefarious users of Tor, the better, because A, they take away bandwidth, and B, they don't have the cause, but rather misuse that cause.
Okay.
My opinion.
Yeah, it goes against the principle.
And Martin's too, exactly.
Okay.
Time for the poxies, I suppose.
The poxies, okay.
Yeah, so Martin, what's your pox?
My pox is a book I read a few years ago, which has now been turned into a TV series as well.
Let me guess, Happy.
Is what?
Let me guess, Happy is the name of the TV series.
No.
Not, okay.
Oh, sorry, you want to know the name as well. Yeah.
I'm just guessing, no. No, that's a TV series called Happy.
Oh, okay.
It's
not heard of
rather
it.
strange. Let's put it this way.
Right. Okay. It requires some,
What's the name of that tea?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. So the book is by Ben McIntyre. It's called SAS Rogue Heroes. Very good book. Well worth reading.
Rogue Heroes. Okay.
SAS Rogue Heroes is about the origins of the SAS and so on.
What's the SAS?
What do you mean, what's the SAS? Special Air Service.
For the people who are not familiar with that term.
As opposed to the SBS, which is the Special Boat Service.
Not everybody comes from a military background. Please don't forget that.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So it's called Special Air Services.
It is.
SAS. Okay. So what do special air services do?
Well, it started in the Second War in Africa, where they started a bunch
Second World War.
Second World War. Bunch of Brits started had this initiative to go behind what's the tank guy Rommel's lines in Africa to blow up his airplanes and stuff like that. Yeah, him. Yes.
Ah, okay.
The
Yes.
tank guy. Yeah.
The German crazy nutter. Yes.
Well, one of them. Yeah.
Exactly. At the time, I might add.
Yes. So yeah, so it's really the book is about the origins of how that regiment came about, and it's obviously quite famous. Very good read. TV series is obviously a bit dramatized, but well worth a watch for sure. Yep.
Okay, details maybe in the show notes if the link can be established. Set TV series and never mind book.
It's on the BBC, so you can't miss it.
Oh dear. But I'm sure that Wikipedia or some other place has a page on said author, never mind book. So
indeed. And what about yours?
My POC is actually something called Up First. It's a
not the movie Up.
Okay. No. It's a podcast done by a communist American radio station called National Public Radio, also known as NPR. And it's about 14.
Okay. Yep.
No, exactly. There's a difference. It's called National Public Radio, not Public Radio. Exactly.
Yeah.
So National Public Radio, as you may or may not know, is in the business of supplying somewhat more neutral coverage than Fox and Friends in the US. It's publicly funded, hence the name. And Up First essentially is about 14 to 60 minutes long. It's published around 6 a.m. East Coast time. And essentially it gives you just a rundown within 40 minutes of 3 subjects. Slightly slanted towards from American perspective, but it gives you also something that you do not read in USA Today. So if you're fed up with the coverage of USA Today and Friends, just cancel your subscription and simply head over to NPR and subscribe to Up First.
Okay.
And with that, I suppose we have reached the end of another glorious episode.
Yes. Very good. Yes. We have feedback, by the way, in case you...
We have feedback.
We do. Yes. What happened to it?
What feedback do we have?
Let me find it for you. We have more than one feedback this time. If I'm not mistaken, we have about 3. Let's have a look.
So, Martin, as you fired marketing once again,
marketing.
Yes, you are acting. You are the acting CMO as a chief marketing officer. So, why don't you read back that feedback?
Okay. Yes, I can do that. Okay. Well, the first one is from Adam J. Shee, who has left, in fact, 2 bits of feedback. This one is on episode 69, Vote for Rocky Linux. He says, in-laws, based on the long history of contributors, I vote that Greg's Rocky Linux will come out on top in 10 years' time. Sincerely signed, a Fiddlebit.
Martin, hang on. Something went haywire across along the line, because I think we were supposed to gather the votes in about 10 years' time, no?
Well, he's. I think he's saying I'm voting that Rocky Linux will be on top in 10 years' time.
Yes.
Yes.
But the swag won't go out before that.
Oh, no, for sure. We have to wait 10 years to see if it comes
yes.
true. Right?
So this is...
Adam.
Adam,
bear with us.
This is an early opinion poll, of course.
Indeed.
This is not the end of the ballot, I might add. Very important. Do we have feedback along these lines or not, Martin?
We have another one on episode 69, this time by The Bit Fiddler. That sounds vaguely familiar. to Adam J. Shee's call sign.
So what does it say, Martin?
It says, in-laws, the community focus of Alma Linux cannot be beat. Signed sincerely, the bit fiddler. So I think Adam is kind of hedging his bets here a little bit.
Okay, I think Martin, somebody's trying to rig the system here.
Yes.
So Adam or whatever, shame on you.
A little bit.
No swag, I'm afraid. Never mind 10 years time or now.
Well, I guess we'll give him a chance if he can give us his final vote, and then that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
But just the one.
Jokes aside, the deadline is around September 2032. So if you want to cast your final vote by then, by all means, if you are serious and kind of don't go two ways, you might be entitled to some swag, depending. But Adam, seriously, if you are trying to rig the system again, shame on you.
Yes. Do we have more
But
feedback?
I think we have another one, right?
We do? Oh, no, there's another one from Adam.
There is?
Who's missing one of our episodes, apparently. And Adam is using Proton Mail, which we should probably cover at some point, but maybe not today.
So, Proton Mail, if you're listening, the email address is sponsor@linuxinlaws.eu. Just get in touch and we'll sort out the details. No worries. No, Luna, long-time listener, 10th-time writer, sent mail.
Yes, I missed that one. Sorry. I missed
it. Yes, and that's exactly a genuine vote now. Hey, I will bet on Alma Linux. Did listen to the episode yesterday, but did not have the time to email until now.
That's okay. You got 10 years.
Luna,
minus a few days.
Luna, exactly. Luna, thanks again, and much appreciated.
Indeed. Yes. So keep voting, people. Yeah.
Exactly, and also keep sending feedback to feedback@linuxinlaws.eu. If you want the show, please get in touch with our sponsor at linuxinlaws.eu.
Yes.
And if you want to send hate mail,
the email does work,
just use the email address Martin at, but I keep forgetting the rest. Anyway, doesn't matter.
I thought you had a spam filter on feedback anyway.
Sorry, the address for hate mail is marketing@linuxinlaws.eu because that will directly go to Martin's inbox.
You redirected it, have you?
I did,
I must have a word with IT, really.
Martin, after you fired them, you're talking to them.
I see.
So apparently you didn't get the memo because you also fired HR. So tough luck then, is it?
Yes, we don't want any of these people. Yeah. All right. Excellent.
Do we not? Okay, fair enough. In that case, people, thank you for listening and see you soon. This is the Linux In-Laws.
You come for the knowledge,
but stay for the madness.
Thank you for listening.
This podcast is licensed under the latest version of the Creative Commons license, type Attribution Share Alike. Credits for the intro music go to Blue Sea Roosters for their song Solid Market, to Twin Flames for their piece called The Flow, used for the segment intros, and finally to Celestial Ground for their song Sweet Justice, used by the Dark Side. You find these and other ditties licensed under CC at Jamendo, a website dedicated to liberate the music industry from choking copyright legislation and other crap concepts. As soon as you have the recording up and running.
Oh, yes. Well spotted. That would be annoying if we don't.
At least one of us is paying attention.
Indeed. Don't send any CVs.
Something for the outtakes.